I'm Melissa Shanahan, and this is the Velocity Work Podcast, episode number 71. This podcast is for attorneys who are running their own firms. We explore tactics, tools, and stories related to pushing past simply lawyering well and into building a successful firm. Working in your firm and working on your business are two very different things. This podcast focuses on the latter. Hi, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode. Can you believe we are smack dab in the middle of the last month of the year? Got a couple weeks left of the year. That is crazy. I will be done working within a week from when you're listening to this, less than a week. And I'm so thrilled because this last week is full of great things, fun things, teaching and facilitating, hosting a retreat for a private client, and leading a workshop. There's just lots going on where I get to interact with my favorite people, attorneys who own their own practices. So it's pretty a dreamy way to round out 2020. I'm going to give you today some things, some prompts for you to reflect on 2020 and help yourself get clear for 2021. Now, this isn't going to be a workshop. I would love to lead a workshop. I do lead workshops. If you want to attend those workshops, you need to join Mastery Group, which is velocitywork.com/join. If you want to go deeper with anything that we're talking about on the podcast, that's the place we do it. We learn it, we study it, and we apply it inside of Mastery Group. But y'all as listeners are still really important to me, and I really want to give you some tools. So that's what we're going to cover today. Before I dig into that, I'm just going to mention in 2 days, I'm teaching the last class of the year, the last one. It's Speed Up Success with Personal Processes 2.0, because I did teach this class in November. I've actually taught it twice. One was to listeners and to my email list. I offered it to them. We had a good turnout for that. And then I did a test version because I really revamped things and got it better and tighter. So I did a test version with some participants who were new to me, didn't know me. This would be their first interaction with me. I did that in early December. And it went really well. It went so much better, smoother, and it was meatier than the original one that I had taught. And so that I thought, okay, cool. It worked well with there. So now I'm going to offer it to my list and to my listeners, this revamped 2.0 version. So I'm so excited to bring it to you. If you have been to this class before, because I have taught it a couple times, I would come again. Because number one, have you implemented what you could have from that class? And number two, there's a really good chance that you weren't on the revamped version because unless, if you just started listening after that class, maybe, but it is good. There are worksheets. You think through something so that when you leave, you have something you can implement right away. That is what I'm talking about. So that's what we're doing this week. And it's all about personal processes. You just should be there. I think every human that owns a business should be thinking about personal processes. It is one of the success makers. I've worked with so many successful owners, and I would consider myself a successful owner, not a cakewalk, but I do consider myself a successful owner, and I practice what I preach, and I'm putting things into place, and my clients do too. And I've also worked with clients that don't. I see the difference. So I want to give you these difference makers in these classes, and it's the last class of the year. So you should come. The only reason you shouldn't come is if you're a Mastery Group member, because I got you. We go through, we cover all the bases in Mastery Group. So if you are a member there, you do not need to sign up for this class. But if you're not, you should come and use that hour. Show up, be fully present, and dig in so that you get a return on the investment of your time that you're giving to the class. That won't be hard to do. I promise you that. If you want to go to that class, it's velocitywork.com/PP. Stands for personal processes. velocitywork.com/PP. And come to the class. It's 2.0. Are you ready? It's going to be great. Let's dig in to today's content, shall we? Okay. Reflect and get clear at the turn of the year. We're going to start with the past and reflecting on 2020, and then we're going to talk about the present, and then we're going to talk about the future. So get a pen and paper, and if you're listening to this in the car or on a run or something like that, I would say you can listen to this all the way through, but then I would come back and sit down and have a notebook and actually answer the prompts. There is no way that you will not benefit from having answered these questions. I do not think, and I'm not pretending to think that you are going to have this well thought out strategic plan after you sit down to do this. That's not the case. That's what workshops are for. That's what I do. That's what I do in depth with clients and members. But I do think it's going to get you very clear so that you make really good calls for 2021. Whatever decisions, whatever goals you set for yourself, and whatever priorities you put into place, your rocks, so to speak, if you're familiar with rocks, but just whatever priorities and efforts you decide to put yourself into in 2021, they're going to be more aligned because you answered these questions. So these feel very important to set yourself up right in order to make good calls for yourself. So let's start with the past. I want you to sit down and make a list of all the accomplishments that you can recall that you've accomplished or your firm has accomplished in 2020. When I do this, I go back to my calendar and I look at the calendar just to make sure I'm not missing anything, and I can think chronologically. But sit down and think of all the accomplishments and make a list. It can be small, it can be big, it doesn't matter. Just what would you consider like, yeah, we accomplished that. You put in work and you accomplished that. You set yourself up and then you accomplished that thing. So make a list. And that is just to ensure that you aren't flying into the next year without acknowledging all of the results that you have created. That's another way to say it. So accomplishments, it's also what results have you created, or at least had a big hand in creating, influenced heavily. And so you influence the creation of that result for your firm or for yourself. It could be weight loss, if we're talking personal. It could be something around health. It could be something around a client that you were very glad to get. It could be something around a team member. It could be a revenue goal. It could be a process that was put into place. Whatever comes to mind when I say accomplishment, those are the things I want you to think through. So push pause right now if you've got your notebook and just go at it. Make a list of accomplishments. The second thing I want you to think back through 2020 is I want you to think back over the accomplishments, but then think back. You don't have to write any of this down if you don't want to, but I really just want you to get your head in the space of 2020 in its entirety. All of it. All of the hard stuff. All of the stuff that came easy. All of the accomplishments. All of the failures. All of it. The whole picture for 2020. And really take, at least 5 minutes and think through the year. Think through all of it. And when you're from that place, I want you to answer the question, what are the top lessons learned that you want to carry forward? These lessons learned usually bring themselves up as truths or principles that you have come to understand through your experience. You've come to understand them. It's not just a pretty sentence or a cliche saying somewhere that, I've talked about this before, but there's lessons where done is better than perfect. We've all heard that. And of course it sounds good in our mind, but through your experience, maybe you have a full understanding and you're never going to go backwards from that lesson. You're always going to want to remind yourself as you move forward, getting something to 80% is good enough. And then we can tweak from there, right? That's done is better than perfect. Just get it done. Get it done. So that's one example of a lesson. It's the easy go-to one that I offer you guys a lot. One of mine from this year was go all in on myself. Bet on myself. And this came up for me because I ended up hiring a team member who I'm so glad I did. It was the right call. And the final decision for me, because it felt a little early to hire this person. And but it was a meaningful role. And when I really sat back to think about it, the reason that I made the decision was that I knew that I would have my own back. The only reason that this would not be a good idea is if the company couldn't generate enough revenue for it to like actually hold at that level of revenue for this to be a good idea. And I thought, you know what? That's on me. I have a lot of influence over how much output our company is doing, which will directly impact the amount of revenue that is coming in. And so really, I decided to go all in on myself and have my own back with making the decision to hire this person, even though it felt a little bit early. And it was the best decision I've made this year. And I will tell you, that is a lesson I'm carrying forward, because I could have hired that person and then sat back and thought, well, I hope this works out, and been a little bit more passive. I'm even just a fraction more passive, or I guess a better way to say it is just a little less than all in, like doing a lot, but not all in, and have my own back in this decision. It would have made a difference. I wouldn't have got the return on the investment. I'm investing in this team member, and I wouldn't have gotten quite the return had I not been as all in as what I was. And there's a lot of things that made that work well, including the team member that I'm talking about, that I'm speaking of. Her name's Caitlin, including Caitlin. But if I had not made that decision to hire Caitlin, I knew that she was a good hire, but I was doubting myself and the revenue of the business. It was a little early. And you know what? I made the call to go all in, and I'm going to keep doing that in the future, because it taught me a lesson about what's possible when you just don't even look back. It is full steam ahead forward, fully committed to the decision that was made. It makes all the difference. So that was an example for me. What does it look like for you? What lessons do you want to carry forward this year? And maybe you haven't consciously already thought of them, but that's why it's a good time to push pause on this and think through it. What takeaways, when you think back, what are the takeaways that you want to carry forward? What are the truths that you can't not know now? You can't unlearn those. What do you want to carry forward? So take a minute and think back. You can have just one overarching, you can have a few, but you think back and you think of the lesson or lessons that you want to carry forward. Okay, now, once you get that done, now we're kind of moving into the present. Now, where things stand right now, today, for you, what can you honestly say you want more of in 2021? And then on the opposite end, what can you honestly say you want less of in 2021? Those kind of will end up reflecting the same ideas, but I still think it's helpful. Sometimes your brain needs the one way or the other, more of or less of. So really ask both sides, ask both questions and see what comes up. For me, just to give an example, for me, the word that came to mind was space. I want more space in 2021. And that was actually my word for this year too. And it worked out beautifully. We did a good job with that, but there's more. I can do more with giving ourselves space as a company, me as a person, for my family, all of it. I just want more space, less being right up to my deadlines, less chaos. We don't have a ton of chaos, but we have it. So I want less of that. And there are things I'm going to have to do to line up with that. But it's good to know. It's good to ask yourself so that you don't just keep running at the same speed or in the same way that you have been. It's good to pause and ask, what do you want more of? What do you want less of? Okay. And then the next thing, we're going to think forward now. You've got to have in your mind a big ass goal. It could be down the road. It doesn't even have to be for 2021. It could just be something big that feels impossible. There's different names that experts and authors and coaches and teachers out there call this kind of a goal. Sometimes you'll hear it's the 10X goal. Sometimes you'll hear it called the impossible goal. Sometimes you'll hear it be called the ultimate goal or the extraordinary goal. But I'll tell you what, it doesn't matter what you call it. It is the goal that's like, holy crap. If I don't even see how I could get there, but if I could get there, whoa, that kind of a goal. You should have that for yourself. And if you don't have a number attached to it, I highly recommend that you do. You can't be afraid of revenue. Even if there's some people that talk to me and they're like, well, it's not about the money. No, but it is. We all have a business that we're trying to grow. So don't kid yourself. It doesn't mean maybe the money isn't the reason you wake up every day and get yourself out of bed every day to make more money. Maybe that's not it for you. But if it is also, by the way, no shame. But if it's not, there still has to be a revenue goal because your business, if you want to see growth for your firm, that is a result that has to be created is more revenue. So I would highly encourage you to attach a revenue number for your company. You can have other goals too, but that needs to be a thing that you're going to consider with this like big dreamy goal. If you have that, and if you don't have it, I would say pause and just stop and don't overthink it. There's no analytics here. Don't get out your calculator. None of that. Just what's your number? What is your number? So once you have that, you may not know exactly how long this is going to take. There's no way you can know exactly how it's going to take because you don't exactly know how to get there. If you knew how to get there, you would already be there. So this isn't about, this is just a way to force your brain to think differently is to have that number. I want you to think for a second that where you currently stand, your current annual revenue is point A. And this dreamy, awesome number is point B. Now you've got a journey in between there. There's a gap between point A and point B. Now I want you to understand that yes, it means there's going to have to be a lot of things that happen in your business. Your firm is going to have to experience a lot of things to get from point A to point B. But I'll tell you what, you have to recognize, if you don't have to do anything, right? But it would serve you well to recognize that one of the focuses that you need to be tuned into is that you have got to become the kind of person that can have point B. You have to become the kind of owner that can have a firm that's doing the revenue that you have down for point B, your big revenue. That you right now, the way you operate, the way that you think, the way that you move through your minutes and your hours and your day, the way that you lead and are example for people around you is not the kind of person yet that you need to be in order to have this blown up version of your firm, whatever that looks like to you. Now, and by the way, I don't assume for a second that all of you listening to this want this huge firm. It's not about that. But there is growth that you want to happen because if there wasn't, you wouldn't be listening to this podcast. So what is that? Like, what does it look like? What would really just blow your own mind and you'd be so proud of to get to? There's one other thing I want to say here. I mean, if I was editing this, I'm not going to edit this podcast. This is just going out as it is. But if I was going to be editing this, maybe I would try to like re-slot this somewhere else. I just think it's worth saying, it's sort of as an aside, is that the goal that you set, don't attach, if you have negative beliefs or thoughts about what life has to look like to create a big number, you need to check yourself. I know people that have, I'll stick with law firms for a second. I know law firm owners personally that I interact with consistently that have $5 million practice. Okay, so that $5 million practice, that owner isn't running like his life isn't chaos. He has built it the way he wants to build it. That's important. I also know someone who's at 1.5 and they're shooting for maybe 2 point, I can't remember exactly, but they're shooting for 2 point something next year. Their life is going to have more space as their business grows. So what I'm saying is whether you are 100K and you want to go to 300K, or whether you are at 1 million and you want to go up, it doesn't matter where you are on the spectrum. Don't tell yourself, or just be careful of what you're thinking of what it's going to have to look like to reach that number. Because if you have any negative connotation, if you have any negative spin on it's going to be more chaotic, I don't want that much responsibility. I don't want that much chaos. Well, you can grow in a way that doesn't have those things. So I just want to make sure you're not cutting yourself short and picking this smaller goal because you're afraid of what it means to go big. You can create something big and have more space and have more of a personal life than you even have right now. Have more organization. So just be careful why you're picking your number. Make sure you're picking your number for reasons that you really like, not for fear-based reasons. Okay. So getting back to it, that was a little off track, but getting back to it. So you have point A and point B. Point A is where you are right now with your current annual revenue. Point B is where you want to be with your annual revenue eventually, something that would really excite you and blow your socks off, right? In between there is what I call the gap. And it's not just a gap in terms of how much money needs to be created. It's not just a gap of the kinds of things that need to be done inside your firm. It's not, the gap it starts and stops with you developing yourself to become who you need to be in order to create the result of the law firm that's sitting at point B. That is the whole thing. The reason that I'm telling you to think of it in this way is because as you think forward to 2021, you're going to pick, goals and priorities, or what we refer to as rocks. You're going to choose things, and to make those decisions well, you need to think of yourself having already created the result. What would that person do in your shoes? That's crazy to think about. So I want you to back up. Let's say that again. In order to decide what your 2021 efforts are going to be, what the goals are going to be in 2021, you need to be making those decisions from the place of already having created the result of your law firm being at point B, whatever your point B is. So if you are right now at 100K and you want to be at 300K, you need to think from that 300K owner. You need to think from that place and look back and help your present self, help your current self decide what makes the most sense. If you're making $1 million already and you want your big scary goal is $5 million, then when you're thinking forward to 2021, do it from the place, like close your eyes and really think from the place of you have created the $5 million firm. What advice would you give yourself right now, knowing you're at 1 million and you want to take the next step forward, the next right steps forward? What comes to mind as the things that need to be focused on, that need to be done? How do you need to operate differently than you currently are operating? How do you need to spend your time differently than you're currently spending your time? These are good questions to ask yourself. And here's why. And for some of you, it's going to feel airy-fairy. You're like, future self, current self, what? But here's the truth. When you ask yourself the questions from the place of having already created it, your answers are always more wise. They're always more tuned in to what really matters. If you ask yourself from the place, these questions from the place that you are right now, let's say, you're 100K, you want to get to 300K, and your 100K self, you don't actually try to put yourself forward. You don't actually think from the 300K self. You think from the 100K self. Well, you're so myopically focused. Like what you've been doing is working, right? And so it allows you to continue on the path that you're continuing and maybe just crank harder. Some areas you'll work smarter because you just know. You should be putting processes into your business. X, Y, and Z. And so you have like little bits that that you can work smarter. But otherwise, you're just going to work harder as you move forward. It's there's a book I'm reading right now, and I'm going to do more of a podcast on it once I get through it. It's called The Last Word on Power. I'm pretty sure that's what it's called. And the author in that book talks about your winning strategy. What got you here is your winning strategy that got you right here, you can't keep applying it because you will never get very far. You have to throw out your winning strategy and you have to think from the place of where you want to go to think back to what a different strategy is that's going to be necessary, because the winning strategy that got you where you are will not get you where you want to go. And so this is all stuff that I've learned in the past. I just really have an appreciation for the way that she's framing it. And so I want to offer that to you today. That is why you should ask yourself from the future place what you should do, what you should focus on, what priorities make the most sense given where you are right now. Because if you just keep trucking and if you take your winning strategy and keep applying it and keep doing it and keep doing it, you're never going to go very fast, very far. So you've got to ask from your future self and look back from point B, having created the result of whatever that revenue is, that size of firm, whatever it is for you, that point B. If you can imagine you're already there, what do you need to implement now in order to be on track for that? And you need to start deliberately becoming that person. You need to deliberately become that owner. So what do you need to do to be more of who that person is that has already created the big result? Okay, so that's the big thing I wanted to say is you think forward, you need to make sure that whatever goals you set for this year and whatever priorities you set for this year, that like, okay, these are the things that need to be focused on. You want to make those decisions from the place of point B, not from where you currently are sitting, and decide what to focus on from there. So here's what I will say. It's just to bring this, to get it a little more concrete. As you're thinking from that place, brainstorm a list of ideas, a list of things that you need to step into. What are a list of things that you know has got to be the case for your firm? You may not even know how to do it. It doesn't matter. What needs to be the case for your firm and what needs to be the case for you as the owner? How do you need to show up differently? And with your time, with your leadership, whatever comes to mind, what do you need to do differently? How do you become that person at point B? And if you can tap into that goes a long way with thinking because you will be guiding the firm. And so that will really help make sure that you at the helm of your firm you're coming from the right frame of mind, the best that you possibly can, your future self. And then the other thing when you're making a list of ideas, so not only for you and how, who you need to become, but also I would think about what in your firm needs to be focused on in order to be on track for that big thing, that big goal. Because your answers whatever answers come from your future self, when you think from that place, it's going to help create sustainability in your business. It's going to help create simplicity in your business. And when we think from where we are right now and we think forward without going to the future self, we usually will add complexity to the business and add chaos to the business. And that's because we're just cranking harder at our winning strategy that got us to where we are. You got to scratch that winning strategy. You have to be willing to throw it out the window and willing to question everything that got you where you are. Doesn't mean you don't do it anymore, but you have to be willing to question it. And doing that from a wiser place, from the you that's already been there, done that, is really kind of cool to look back, and answers will come. If what's running through your mind is like, well, I don't know what answers I would give because I haven't created it yet. Just go with me here. If you get quiet and you do what I'm asking you to do, you will be surprised it may not be a clear sentence that comes to your mind, but there will be this wisdom that comes forth. It's like, you know what? I need to change our fee structure because it's way too complex. And growing the business on that is going to feel like more of a house of cards than not. So I need to change that up. Just things like that. That's what will come. It's like, whether it's fee structure, whether it's decisions around your team members, whether it's how you are with your discipline and your focus. Whether it's developing a new practice area or not, maybe having set work hours, like whatever it is, you will know your own answers that make a ton of sense. And it is that stuff that you need to do and focus on in the near future. Okay, so we asked questions about the past, 2020. We asked from sitting in the seat that you're in right now, what do you want more of? What do you want less of? And then from your future self, the version of you that has already created your big scary goal, your big dreamy goal. From that place, what advice do you have? What are you telling your current self to focus on? What are you telling your current self to do, to think about, to remember? Those kinds of things. And when you get clear on that, then when you're thinking forward with your priorities for the first quarter, it'll be very clear what needs to be focused on in order to put your firm on the right track and in order to put you on the right track so that you build the firm that you want to build on your own terms and in a sustainable way. Okay, I hope this helped you guys. I think it's important to have a bit of a structure when you sit down and think for yourself, when you're reflecting and planning forward. And if you want more help on goals and rocks, like actually deepening this conversation and having that, then get yourself in Mastery Group. And if you want to have a little leg up on personal processes, because I don't care who you are, where you are, if you're brand new or if you've had a firm and it's huge and you've had a firm for years, we all could take how we operate as the owner to the next level. And doing that through personal processes is a big deal. And it's not hard. It's very simple, but it's a concept that if you can grok this, then you will set yourself on a different path moving forward. So hopefully I'll see you there. All right, everyone. Have a really great week. I will see you here next Tuesday. Hey there. If you enjoyed this podcast, I highly recommend you come and check out Mastery Group. It is where owner attorneys come together to study this material, apply it, and thus create really big results for their firm and for their life. So come on over, velocitywork.com/join to get more information and get started. Show notes from this episode can be found at velocitywork.com/podcast.